This is Patton, and I'm sitting here with Nick and Marcus of the Big Bang Wrestling Show. Make sure you listen to the whole thing so you can find out what my first gimmick name was. I'm not too proud of it, but you'll hear about it first here on Big Bang Wrestling.
Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome to another episode of Big Bang Wrestling. I'm your host Marcus.
And I'm Nick.
And today we are joined by Virginia's own wrestling legend here, Doc Patton. Doc, how you doing?
I'm doing great, and I would say I'm far from legend status.
And so you've been wrestling, you said, since 2007?
So I wrestled from 2007 to 2010, actively throughout the Mid-Atlantic. Took a break, built a little career in the Army, and wrote some books. Came back into entertainment, and now I'm lacing up the boots and bringing it again throughout the Mid-Atlantic for the time being.
All right.
You told us before that you didn't always wrestle as Doc Patton.
No. Before Patton came to life, just before the pandemic time, when they shut down live events, Patton was ready to go to the ring, and then live events closed down, so I had to pivot, like a lot of us. You had to change gears, that kind of thing, and so I just didn't pack it up. I didn't stuff it in the attic. It was ready again when live events were ready to come back. So it was Patton. But before we got that going, it was Gamble. I think it's fun when you find out the story of different characters that find themselves, reaching certain levels of stardom, and you go, oh, but before that,
it was this guy.
And do you believe they did this to them before that? So
can you believe that this guy?
Oh man,
some of the stuff is pretty wild.
I think the funniest one for me, like when I think about who the guys were before, is like Dolph Ziggler.
When he's the cheerleader.
Yeah, he started out in the Spirit Squad.
Yeah. Spirit Squad.
Like Kane, he was the dentist with the rotten teeth.
Yeah.
And then a year later, he's Undertaker's brother.
Yeah, right. But what made you decide you wanted to become a pro wrestler? What moment was it for you that made you decide to do that?
The first time or the second time?
The first time.
We'll start at the very beginning.
What really got you into it?
So truly, I had a career in competitive drug-free bodybuilding.
Right.
And so I had a certain look. I was young, and it may be before your time, but there was MySpace before there was
I remember.
Facebook.
Back in the old days.
Yeah, easy now. Well, at the time, there was some local talent, and they're like, hey, if this is really you, and you're, really 25, no injuries, no kids, and these pictures are of you, this might be a good fit for a tryout here in Newport News, Virginia. And it was a really cool transition because I think every young man at some point, while they're 7, 8, 9 years old, wants to be a professional wrestler because if it's on your TV, you think, man, I can do that. And if you've got a brother or a small friend you can practice on, it's going to happen.
Well, I had 2 older brothers, and so
you were the practice guy.
Yeah. Now I'm bigger than both of them. Now they don't want to wrestle anymore.
So it's interesting how it works. So, I went to Newport News and got absolutely humbled. They started me off as, a bodybuilder. I look like the picture of health, but honestly, being truthful, bodybuilding itself isn't the most healthy.
Right.
Yeah.
So they made me run 5 miles, and then we started learning how to run the ropes, back bumps, attacking the mat.
Yeah.
When you're afraid of the mat, attack the mat. The whole thing. So,
but after the first day, you was already hurting.
it didn't take the whole day to get there. I was very, very humble. We had some collegiate-style wrestlers that were real champions out of Lafayette High School, the Hall Stars, twin brothers, that they were just tagging in. And you don't have to beat them. You just have to not get pinned. Just go. And so Ross would get a little tired, and he'd tag James in, and then I'm fighting these. I wasn't trained. I just had to get off my back and try to get over them and use some of that strength that really wasn't, hewed into what we needed to do to produce what you see in the ring now. So
now, were you a fan of wrestling growing up? Did you?
In seasons, there are always seasons of things, and so as a kid, I grew up just loving Sting and Lex Luger and Ultimate Warrior, Kurt Hennig and Rick Rude, all time. And then you get away from it. You get interested in different things. And,
Yeah.
And then I'll never forget the night that my brother, who's 5 years my junior, he comes running up into my bedroom and he goes, "You got to come down and you got to see this. I mean, you got to come see it now. It's on TV. It's the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. And he's going to beat Shawn Michaels. He's going to fight Shawn Michaels for the title right now on Monday Night Raw Live. Come on, you got to come down and see this." And his insane enthusiasm for what was happening.
Right.
I came out. I go, "Oh, I remember this.
Right.
I know what this is." And without squashing the Santa Claus Easter Bunny story, I'm just like, okay.
Back into it again.
And so I, little by little, because it was on every night, I mean,
Right.
he was hooked. And so it was in the house. And one of my high school girlfriends, her brother, just 2 years ahead of us, was addicted to it. And so I'm just trying to kiss her in the next room, but they were making so much noise with wrestling on. And it was just so much around it with the hype. Rock, Stone Cold, Ken Shamrock.
Yeah.
I mean, Jericho, the guys were, larger than life again. And just like wrestling, people's fandom and following kind of goes in seasons.
Yeah, that's true. 'Cause I know for a while, even I started to get out of it.
Yeah.
And then it was like right about the time where The Miz had won WWE title.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started getting more back into
About
it.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's weird because that's about the time that I got out of it. But the second time, it was around that period. But then when I was in college, somebody showed me New Japan, and I was like, oh
yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah. If
Well-
you've been away from the product and then you're exposed to that,
Yeah.
your interest is immediately revived.
Because the first time I saw Nakamura from New Japan, I'm like, they can do that?
Yeah.
These guys like fighting, like what are,
Yeah.
And I was big into MMA at the time, so it's
Sure.
really,
A lot of crossover.
yeah.
What was the match you had showed me? It was like a 10-minute match, and they're just beating the absolute
It was
hell out of each other.
It was G1 Climax from 2013, and it was Ishii and Shibata. It's just like a 12-minute match, but it's just all they did was just kick the crap out of each other the entire match.
Sure.
Just sweat, spit flying everywhere,
Yeah.
and they just looked like they were just trying to hurt each other for real.
Yeah.
And even that brain buster at the end was stiff.
Sure.
And that's what brought me back was that actual.
Because I don't know how familiar you are with New Japan, or if you watch that at all. I'm not very familiar with it. Like, I'll catch glimpses of it, but he's more of our New Japan guy.
Sure.
So
I can hang. I can hang.
I love that strong style.
Sure,
When
absolutely.
The first time I saw it was like, yeah, I'm hooked.
Well, I'll have to send you the most recent match I had with Tyler Shade.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers. We had a local show out of Round One Wrestling, which is a school here in Williamsburg, not far from where we are.
Okay.
And one of the talent that I got to work with, he and I just both had an understanding of what the presentation value was expected of the other.
Right.
And by the time we got to the back, the locker room was looking at us like, "Are you okay?
Yeah.
Are you guys okay?" And so when we had our meeting afterward, the referee, he came back and was like, "What are you guys so mad about? You guys sorted out?
Yeah. You get it all out.
We just put together a match for you guys." And they're like, "Well, we all thought you guys were mad as hell. We really thought that you guys were." And I love that because people have an expectation, or they have an understanding of the membrane of knowledge and the guy behind the curtain kind of thing. And if they go, you did that on purpose?
Yeah, when you got them questioning.
imagine what the
you
people
just-
watching are thinking.
Right.
Exactly. And so we talked a little bit before the cameras went on about wrestling out in West by God, Virginia, and more rural parts. And you got, generations of people that come out to the shows, grandparents bringing out their kids, and they're like, "This is my grandson's first match live," and they'll get me off at intermission. And go, "I know this isn't all real, but you guys were killing each other, and you're gonna get them next time. I know it. You're gonna get them." And I go, "Yeah, you're right.
Definitely gonna get them.
You keep cheering. I'm pulling you in. You got to come get me."
So, going back towards your training, overall, how was your you trained here in the local area?
Right. I trained with a VCW camp, and it was 14 months of wrestling school.
Wow.
How was the experience there?
Awful. No, it was great because I did have a rotation of instructors. The teachers that came through had really great knowledge, great experiences, and then they were just bold enough to tell me when I wasn't doing anything good, or hey, you got to think about this. This is good over here, so leave that right there, and you got to bring up this weakness or this area over here.
Yeah.
And I do feel like the varied perspectives that were shared. Sean Denny, he's from the UK, and he provided a perspective that was different than the twins, the Hall Stars, which provided a different perspective than Pat Cusick, who wrestled with the WCW crew.
Okay.
You got C.W. Anderson coming through there and going, "What is this? You guys are looking awful." And he'd said it straight out as a previous guest.
That sounds like him.
Just learning who to pay attention to, and what to filter out and that kind of thing. So, well, where's this guy been? And it's not just a matter of professional success, but where they've been long term. And what do they bring to the table?
Right. Okay. Well, if you had to pick out like one day or one story from training that really stuck out,
let's see.
what would that be?
I think I'm going to put my friend Janice was his work name, but Jay Nobles. He's got a beautiful family down in Florida. He had the opportunity to work with FCW pretty directly after being scooped up. He went to a local show, WWE show with Phil Brown, who's kind of a local legend for us. If you would call anybody a legend, I'd say Phil Brown, Scott.
I've heard the name. I've heard his name, but I can't think of who he is, though.
Well, you haven't felt his chops, and you never. But he had brought Jay to an event, and of course told him to dress sharp, bring your bag, and he was scooped up, and within weeks we were watching him on WrestleMania as one of the henchmen escorting Floyd Mayweather to the ring.
Okay.
Wow.
And just as luck would have it, Jay had the opportunity to get some real face-to-face interaction with then Paul White.
Yeah.
Just as huge as Jay was, and you asked about the training, so we'll get there. I just remember practicing with him, and he's 6'2". He's a drug-free athlete. He'll fool you every time because you'll go, "Nah, man, there's no way you get this big and muscular." And he's just got an insane work ethic. Love him. Love you, brother. And I just remember having to put his arm over my head if I wanted to hook him for something. And I'm going, "God, this is just an arm." It was so much meat, and I was really humble. I mean, as a body guy in my little category, to be wowed by someone's humility with that amount of muscle that they carried, it was a moment of revelation. I remember we'd have it. The door would be kind of rolled up. It was one of those industrial, spots where the wrestling school was. Just one of those hellacious, hot Virginia humid days, and we had the door rolled up, and I'm throwing Jay's arm over me and going, suplex. You just
can't breathe.
he went on and he did. I think he had a really fun run. I feel like he was really fulfilled. I feel like he was really smart as far as his business, and he kept his money right, and he made himself available. And he was used as Vic Adams for a time down in FCW, and then he got out of the business. He's working in the health and wellness industry, and he's got, like I said, he's got a fantastic family down there. So I love seeing a success story that doesn't end like a crash and burn.
Like you hear about so many.
He was doing well, and then we don't talk about that. Like now,
unfortunately, it seems to be a pretty common thing in wrestling. They're doing well, and then all of a sudden it's just up in flames.
Not the case here.
No, and that's good. That's great to hear.
For sure.
That is pretty awesome.
Definitely. So for VCW, over here in Newport News, I know Gangrel, he comes through there a lot too, don't he?
He's performed for the company several times, yeah.
A lot of times, whenever I see them post something online, Gangrel's always there in some capacity that I've seen.
Billy Gunn.
That's another one I've heard about, yeah.
They've had some real greats. I mean, even if we're going to bring it up, Bobby Eaton, who's no longer with us, he'd been in that locker room a couple of times. I'd seen Barbarian. They were good for bringing in a few of the classic guys that definitely influenced us.
Right.
We'll say Raven.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a memorable time.
Now, did you ever get to work with Bobby?
I did not. That was just not for mean, come on, he's a tower. What am I going to do? He's so big. No. The big guys I worked with were younger big guys.
Okay.
And that
I got you.
was just fine for where I was
I
at.
got you.
So tell us a little bit about your career, like after your training had completed.
Sure. So I did promise on Twitter at Killing Patton that I would talk about some embarrassing stories. I have no problem putting myself out there and having fun. I take wrestling very seriously, but come on, there is so much to be enjoyed.
Oh,
And I don't mind
Oh,
taking the piss if it's on me. So my first match was in a high school auditorium that had me very deliberately trying to get over a couple of things. One, that I was the face, and two, that I was an Italian somebody. I had much longer hair, clean shaven, the sideburns and all that. Yeah, I guess I look Italian.
Guido, I guess. Yeah.
Watch your mouth. And so they put me out there. Literally, they announced me as Babyface Bertucci, which is pretty much on the nose.
Yeah.
So I was in borrowed trunks, and I'm spending more time adjusting my oversized butt cheeks in these little trunks. And I feel like it was kind of a moment where you turned in the middle of the match, because instead of chanting my name, they were chanting baby cakes. Because my baby cakes were falling out of the damn trunks there. And so I was telling them to shut up, and I'm embarrassed, and they're embarrassing me, and they should stop it. And so I kind of did a heel turn the first match out, and that was
Very
okay.
First night.
Yeah, and I'll never live it down. The ones that get me juicy enough to tell that story are like, oh yeah, baby cakes, how you doing there, buddy? So so that was my introduction to the business, and I realized at that moment I was never going to go by that moniker again. Never ever.
We're just going to erase this from
and so
It's never happened.
before you get to ask it, Sean Denny was the one that helped me come up with the name Gamble, which did catch on, and that's how I wrestled for most of my my time throughout the Mid-Atlantic. So,
Okay.
Sean, thanks a lot. Appreciate that.
So we'll definitely have to look up some of the matches as Gamble, because we tried looking them up as Patton, and like I said, it's just hard to find any.
Well, give it a few weeks. We'll get out there.
So you wrestled, you said, up to 2011?
2010. By 2010, I had already talked to the Army recruiter and was on my way to becoming a combat medic. And I did that for 6 years and moved over a few times. I made my way back to Virginia. Shifted gears professionally. Discovered along the way that I was a writer. Okay. And so storytelling is really the crux of what wrestling is. We just get to tell it live and sometimes more improvised than scripted. But the idea is we want to tell a story to an audience across 7 to 15 to 30 minutes. And what I found when I was getting out of the Army was that I could do that with pen and paper. And little by little, more recently, I discovered there's something in me that really wants to do that in front of a live crowd in wrestling trunks. So it's storytelling. And so I've got a best-selling book out. 1,300 Hours is in military drama. And it's the first in a series.
Okay.
Wow. So there's definitely more to come with that. Polishing a trilogy of short stories called Heroes and Ghosts now. It's all set in Richmond and deals with the lives of first responders whose lives intertwine in kind of interesting ways.
And are these books, they're not available? Well, you said 1,300 hours is available now.
Yep. So I can send you that link so you can.
For anybody that might be interested in this, we'll post it on our social media too. Where can they buy this book at? Amazon
and Barnes and Noble bookstores.
Okay.
That's right. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I knew we should have went to Barnes and Noble.
And this is the Veteran Pathways home. It's just for us. So.
And so, did you start the Veteran Pathways home? Or?
No, I would love to take credit for something that's taken a lot of blood, sweat, and tears out of the couple that have done this. Mike and Sharon have basically put together and we're going to switch gears from wrestling to the setting that we're in right here on terra firma. We are in the Veteran Pathways home, and this is a service center for mental health services for our service members and frontline responders. It's not just limited to the military, and it's not limited just to veterans. We're talking active duty service members that do not want their mental health inquiries reported to their front line or their
Right.
chain of command. And so we provide chaplain services, rehabilitative services, substance abuse, domestic abuse, all kinds of services that you should be able to get on post, but without all the red tape. And that's a big deal.
I know that was
Yeah, that's
even
a
when
big
I was in,
thing.
that was a big deal for
Yeah.
a lot of people who had things going on and they wanted to talk to somebody, but they couldn't because it was gonna be sent up.
Of course. And so just in real time, I mean, we're dealing with a worldwide crisis. I'm not talking about I'm talking about what's going on in Afghanistan with our service members and allies. And we are one of 3 states. Virginia is one of 3 states, Wisconsin and Ohio, also that are taking in the refugees. And so resettlement, emotional stability, psychological first aid, those are real-time services that are being provided through the Veteran Pathways Home. So more importantly than my book link, I'd love to make sure that we have a link so our listeners and everybody can plug in to see what's being done here and
Definitely.
what help needs to be done.
Definitely.
We need more hands than we realize. We thought it was busy before this last weekend.
Right.
Yeah, it's
and
just
ramped
getting
up.
picking up.
Yeah. From what you're saying, this week is really about to.
Yeah.
Really about to
We just have a lot of work to do, and it's good work.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely, no problem at all. And so we'll definitely, when we post this episode, we'll post the
definitely get
links
all the
for
links in there.
his books and definitely for the Veterans Pathways Home.
Anybody that can get help through that's awesome.
100%.
Anybody that we can reach out, maybe they never heard of it, they might see it from us, that'd be great.
For sure. Love it.
So
Let's get back in the ring.
definitely. So after you got out of the Army,
Yep.
You said you got out of the Army, what,
17.
2017? Is that when you got back into wrestling, or were you still taking time off and doing other things?
No, I was still recovering from being in the Army, and a lot of it was being done on pen and paper. I'd become a writer for a couple lifestyle magazines, traveled throughout the whole East Coast, from Florida to New York. I was working with a veteran-owned company up there, and was finally able to resettle back in Virginia. My sons are here.
Okay.
Are remarried, and so we've got a real base camp and laying some roots here.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
I was in the physical fitness business again. I worked with a wonderful firm locally and was able to really connect with some amazing people. And then I felt myself moving out of that more and more. And like I said, I got in ring trained up, about 5 months of training time before COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then I looked great and I was ready. I felt great. And then I had to put things on hold. But
COVID just pushed everything back for like a whole year.
we all had to pivot. We all had to pivot.
Definitely.
But I was grateful for the pause and the opportunity to be able to come back.
Yeah.
It looks like there are more opportunities now than ever. A great friend, Jason, who is with the Vices tag team out of Richmond. He's all over the place, from Michigan to Florida. Wow. He is booked solid, and it's hard to catch up with him. But he's doing great things. He invited me back into the fold. He kind of smartened me back up to 2021 business versus how things were 10 years ago. And the business has changed significantly.
Yeah.
So how do you think, that's actually one thing I was going to ask you about too. How has it changed, now from 10, 15 years ago?
So much. I mean, for one, Papa Vince was in charge of everything at the time. TNA Wrestling had a footprint, but not necessarily a great foothold.
Yeah.
The independent scene was harder to access than ever, but the internet was maturing. Now you can catch a GIF and go, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna IWTV that," and you go right to it. The internet, I think, is the big equalizer. I think that it has opened up the crimp in the hourglass for being able to, expose yourself to different companies for booking. You can send them a video in the DM and talk business on Twitter if you're just the ADD, minute businessman, and you go, I work here. I'd love to work where you are. This is what I can do. This is who I am. And a relationship can be established in minutes versus, mailing somebody a VHS and all that kind of, and I've used the term Yeah, that's how long ago it was.
So I think when we interviewed Bruiser Graham,
Yeah.
he said the same thing about mailing in tapes and everything.
The
And it just
pictures
takes
and tapes.
forever.
And
I couldn't
everything.
imagine.
Yeah. And that's going back to late 80s, early 90s when he broke in.
Sure.
And that's
Could you imagine being left on red for months?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And he was going up and down the road with Jimmy Valiant that whole time he's waiting.
Oh,
Yeah, he got to travel with him. What did he say? About 10 years he traveled with Jimmy.
No kidding.
He was his road
I
man.
wrestled down there in Asheboro, North Carolina, and been to a number of his shows.
Yeah.
Worked a number of his shows. That's
For
great.
being as old as Jimmy is, he's
Yeah,
still
he's still
going.
Oh yeah, still got all that energy.
Still kicking.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Still Jimmy.
Love it.
But what y'all starting though with the social media and stuff is you reach a different audience. It's not just the same.
For sure.
It's not just the same normal, I guess, wrestling fans. You can reach other people that may not have seen it before. That might get them into that.
Nick, that's such a huge point because I've had the privilege of being a guest on podcasts like yours and unlike yours. I was recently a guest on the Sledgehammer Horror Show, and they talk mostly horror. But Ken was such a great open-minded host that he had me on talking about that. Talking about Friday the 13th, and then we talked a little bit of wrestling, and there's a keen overlap. Guys that would normally get made fun of before for being a nerd now roll with us because we love nerds who set up computers like this and do a podcast. Wrestling, horror, comics, it's art. And it's great that we can all be artists that are into the same things differently.
Yeah.
And we can respect that. And while this guy might love this over here and I might not understand it, there's still an overlap.
Yeah.
And we all love some degree of violence.
I think that's just human nature.
Yeah,
Everybody.
sure.
And it's fun to be able to meet people where they are and meet more people in less time. And then you can cultivate those relationships as it suits both parties.
Definitely.
Well, side question then.
I'm
You
ready.
brought that up. What's your favorite Friday the 13th movie?
I answered that on the podcast. You're going to have to go back and listen to it. There you go, Ken. Yeah, I mean, there is such a fellowship of nerds. And and I've got to plug this. My intro music is actually produced by my brother, who I mentioned earlier, the original wrestling fan of the house.
Yeah.
He is the frontman for Embrace the Oblivion. So Lee Ashby is the frontman for the rising metal band Embrace the Oblivion. And their hit single, Bind the Wolf, is what I will come out to every time. So
I'll have to check that out too.
Definitely.
It's amazing that he can go from being a Marine and a music nerd who loves metal and can sing 80s falsetto. So amazing. They shred. They absolutely shred. And I'm not just putting them over because he's my brother. They have a real talent. And watch out. They're on their way.
That's awesome.
I was seeing all these local guys and musicians and even wrestlers, gaining popularity. A lot of it being through the social media. It's just a great thing to see.
Yeah. But there's an element of you have to deliver. You can't just suck. You can't just put yourself out there and be like, oh, this is what I've got. No, you have to bring value.
Yep.
And that's what you guys are doing. You're bringing real value. You're getting great guests. I heard some of the names that you have on your roster of guests, and I think you're really doing something special for people that want to access a grassroots wrestling product, get some perspective. I hear you talking about the pay-per-views and the shows that are coming along. I appreciate the opportunity to be a kind of a live guest that doesn't really stick to the format too well.
Yeah,
No,
that's great. I love that.
Because we prefer to be more natural and free flowing. Because a lot of interviews, they got this list that they'll go by, and they'll stick directly to that bullet point by bullet point. It drags and it feels kind of stale.
There's a formula that they stick to. A lot of them, and it's just everything is the same.
Yeah.
No matter who's there, it's just the same feel, the same. And don't want to be that person.
No, well, I'm glad to be on
show.
all the different podcasts that I can be, because I would say that podcasting and I like the business is done in the Twitterverse because it's very ADD. It's short, direct to the point. Yeah. This is my opinion. Take it or leave it. Retweet it or not, and I'm cool with that. I have a decent following on Instagram and Facebook, but that's much more long tail. People that take their time to consume that kind of content, and I'm not putting pictures of me in my wrestling trunks and looking sexy anywhere. So it's just you get what you get. If you don't like the mustache, move on.
That's right.
But we're in the crux of a great time in wrestling. I feel like more places to work than in a long time. I'm looking forward to picking up bookings, not just in the Mid-Atlantic, but I definitely have a hit list of places that I definitely want to see my name on.
You know, that's another thing too. There's so many different types of wrestling now.
Sure.
You know, some people may not like WWE, so they watch AEW, or they may not like AEW, they're going to watch Ring of Honor or MLW. You know, there's just so many different places that are all distinct, have their own style now.
And thank heavens we had the internet that allows us to access all those different stuff to determine what we like the most. And when you're talking about independent wrestling TV, giving us access to this product or that product, we can go, okay, so deathmatch scares me. I like strong style, but the light tubes just don't do anything. That don't turn me on. Yeah. So but I want to see the American Lucha product. I want to see Lucha Underground and see all the flipping flying and but still not without the context of storytelling. Right. And I think that's important.
With the rise of like social media, you know, especially talk about wrestling, a lot of fans and different people are also getting like voices, and sometimes it's in a good way, sometimes it's in a bad way. How do you think, trying to figure out how to word it, like social media has affected the wrestling business with the fans?
So it's great, and it's not awesome, because the kayfabe being either thrown out the window, or you limit yourself by staying in a character that a company, organization, writers, bookers don't understand. Right. And so they go, well, I don't like that guy's mask, so I'm not calling him back, or he can stay out of my DMs because I'm not booking him. Yeah. And they don't understand they could be missing out on something special. Mm-hmm. I feel like the opportunity to move merchandise is opened up a great deal, so you're not limited. I will tell you that last time I worked, I always sold out my T-shirts. I had pretty cool Muscle Mafia T-shirts, and it looked like the hands with the the puppet strings, like a Godfather thing,
the marionettes.
And I sold a T-shirt really, really well. Yeah. But I could only sell what I had my hands on to sell to the people at the show. Now you can go on my Shopify page and you can buy a Patton T-shirt, and I've got fans in places I haven't even wrestled yet that are interested in buying product, and they don't even know if I'm good or not. Yeah. Wow. But I'm good. But without taking a bump, I can still earn for my family, which is important.
And that's another thing to think about. Did you ever think you'd get to that point where you're, like you said, you're selling merch to people that have never even seen you wrestle, but they want that?
Yes. Yeah. I knew that was coming. I just didn't know how to access it as Gamble 10 years ago. Right. I have experienced that with the book sales, book creation. Mm-hmm. Before it even published, I was reading a chapter a week live on Facebook Live and getting thousands of viewers and hundreds of comments, and realized that I was onto something. Right. Wow. So being able to connect with your audience in a meaningful way, without necessarily being there when they read the book. Right. I found that recently I had come to that revelation that I love wrestling so much because I get to tell a story in real time and see their reaction. Right. I wish that people could read my book, and I could not just I thank you if you read my book and write a review in Amazon. Thank you. I appreciate that. But if you say, I understood the characters and I cried when the story went up and took me to that place, or I felt or I laughed at the joke that you wrote.
You wish you could see what the reaction is as they're reading.
I mean, could you imagine Nicholas Sparks being able to access his female readership as they swoon and cry and are instilled with hope and all that? We get to do that in front of a live audience, right. and if they're not getting it, if they're not feeling it, and you go like this and they don't give it to you, you go right back to your opponent and you bring it just a little bit more, and you can engage them a little bit more with a little bit more ferocity or tenacity to show that fighting spirit. Oh, I didn't believe in him before, but he's really taking a whooping and he just won't quit. Yeah. It's that Rocky. Does he win the fight? He just stands back up. I mean,
He doesn't quit.
we are pulling from just to get to his feet. Don't get that 10 count, man. Get to your feet.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to create that on so many levels. And it's a real privilege.
And especially working the audience to get to that point too.
Sure.
You know,
If there's not any sympathy, you have to build that sympathy.
that's
And
it.
if there's no heat,
You got to make some heat.
you get that heat.
So when when you plan the matches backstage, a lot of people say they're pre-planned, but I know there's had to be times like y'all had to improvise to try to get the crowd invested in what y'all were doing, right?
There's a lot of improvisation.
Yeah.
Right now, I know that the TV product is very time strict.
Yeah.
And I look forward to learning how to work within that framework. When I spoke with Sin, he says AEW was very, very strict. He says, a 10-minute match can take 5 hours to go over. And I was impressed because I go, okay, you really invested the time, and you knew when you had to be exactly where you needed to be. And I appreciate good order and discipline, and I pride myself on being able to go to that place. The artistic value doesn't have to be lost with that.
Right.
But when I go over a match, I look for moments. What's the moment we're going to create? I love surprising people with maybe looking a certain way and having people's expectation be that, well, that guy's a tough guy. He's really built for combat. And then getting my face kicked off. A good cutoff spot, when you have the ability to take the wind out of the sails of your audience who is pulling for you, and they're right along with you, and they love that you're the champion and you're winning, and then you just give them that, oh, God, is he going to be okay?
Did he die?
Yes.
What happened?
But I think that the important thing is to be, I guess the creative side is knowing what to sell when, and not to oversell, but not to, you don't have to lie.
No.
There's so much authenticity in moments for the reality of combat to be told. My ear got boxed in this last match, and I kept going back to it. And while the refs hold my hand up, I'm still holding that ear because I still feel it. But when I got to the back, I'm getting all these text messages. Is your ear okay? Are you okay? What happened to your ear? I'm like, I'm fine. I felt that. And so that's what I told my audience. You got me. Really got me.
Yeah.
You don't have to overdo it.
Right. But just something as simple as that. And you got everybody, it worked. You got everybody right there.
It's all it worked.
So we mentioned earlier, what moment got you into wrestling? The first time. What was it that made you get back into it the second time?
Right.
I saw the first promotional ads for AEW starting to come across.
Right.
And this was early. And I saw a familiar face and I heard a familiar name. It was Hangman Adam Page.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to see him and be part of the match where he got his first strap.
Really?
And it was a 4-way with Corey Edsel. And forgive me, I do not recall that fourth gentleman's name, but it was Adam and I. And I remember the finish like it was last weekend. And they put this belt on a 17-year-old. You're not small anymore. They're far from small. Respect. He was very, very slender, good-looking, curly-haired, fiery, could flip and fly like nobody's business. And they put the belt on him at 17, and I looked at him going, oh, they must think you're really something because
I was about to say, they must have seen something.
You're so young, and I had no problem. I didn't live in that section. It was pure pro wrestling down in where was it? North Carolina. It was. I know the recreation center. I wrestled there dozens of times.
We talked about it, and you had told me. Was it like Asheboro or something?
It might have been Asheville.
Asheville,
yeah. That's bad.
And I tell you what, when I saw him, I go, that can't be the same guy. Because he's a grown man now.
Yeah.
But it also tells a story that I hadn't stayed too close to the wrestling product and seen all of his body of work when he did his overseas stuff and his Ring of Honor business. Because when I saw him as the first contender for the AEW belt, I was like, holy smokes, this guy is on fire.
Yeah, and then the fact they put him up against Jericho,
Of course.
his first world
Yeah,
title
they had
match,
it.
and he goes against Jericho. That's a hell of
And
a
they
And he
still had a
did,
good
he did
match.
so great. Exactly.
They did have a very good match.
So when he had his run as a tag team champs alongside Kenny Omega, I go, holy smokes, Kenny Omega is a big deal. And you're neck and neck with him. And I thought that was just so special. And so I'd love to see him again in the locker room. And if he remembers me, great. If not, I get it. He's a busy guy. But really, I feel like that and the timing, I still wanted to use my physicality because I don't feel as old as I am. And I still have plenty of miles. And I believe that knowing that Chris Jericho had crossed that threshold and seeing PCO.
Yeah, that's another one. I totally didn't even think about him.
Well, don't sleep on him.
Yeah,
The older fellas that have stayed in the flow and kept their bodies whole enough to go. I mean, you're not going to take anything away from Billy Gunn, who, when he showed up last week on Dynamite, or might have been Dark, gosh, he just walked through the curtain looking like $2 million.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he looked like fresh
still-
talent. He would get booked.
Yeah, he's
Still in good shape.
he looks better now than he did 20 years ago.
For sure. So huge respect for the guys that really take the fitness seriously and apply it without letting that overshadow. You know, because there are definitely, we've seen bodies that look great, but they don't work so great.
Yeah.
And then we've seen other guys that are amazing, but they just haven't put enough into their look to move ahead. You know, we might know wonderful workers in the indies that we go, man, this guy's gonna make it. He's gonna make it. But if he doesn't have a total package to present, he might find
They
himself
flop when
holding
they get on the national stage because of little things like that. Yeah.
They don't have the look. They don't have the style that whoever wants. That
Exactly,
kind of thing.
and it gets so muddy and subjective because I mean there are always exceptions to the rule.
And that's a big thing at the top. You just said it's very subjective.
It is. We like what we like.
Right.
We're just talking about it.
Because all three of us here, I can assure you, have a very different opinion on pro wrestling itself.
Because I know me and you, just between us, we have different opinions on different styles of wrestling.
Sure. Because I like the traditional, the old school. I really am into that.
Yep.
You know, I've not been the biggest fan of AEW.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of things they've done that I like, but as a whole, I've not been the biggest fan because I've been more into the traditional, I guess, tough guy style, you know.
Yeah.
And not that there's anything wrong with AEW. I'm not going to say, oh, nobody should watch it. It's garbage. It's just the worst thing ever.
Well, it wouldn't be true.
Although sometimes I have gotten in a rant where I'm just like, this is you know, it happens. But,
Sure.
But it's just my preference.
You have a lot to pick from nowadays.
Just don't talk to him about Kenny Omega.
I won't. No, you got NWA and you got Impact. It's really changed gears, and there's a crossover. You got New Japan playing with AEW, playing with NWA, playing with AEW. I mean, it's right now. It's a lot of fun.
Impact is one that has really changed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They have.
Like when I first started watching it was a whole completely different look. Just the way they were doing things, I couldn't get into. But then last year when I started watching it again, I was like, okay, it's different. It's good. I like it.
Yeah. Do you like the Don Callis and Scott D'Amore minds working together, what they've put together?
I'll catch it here and there. I don't follow it on a weekly basis. It's like every other week or so I'll watch it. And really so far, from what I've seen, the product has been fairly decent.
Right. Love it.
Now, those two together, actually, I think that's a pretty good duo.
Very creative team.
And Don Callis, he's been around for a long time.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
he's got a hell of a mind for wrestling.
Yep.
I don't know that much about him other than what I see on screen. And
Right. Well, like, I just remember seeing him as the Jackal.
Yeah, of
What
course.
was it? The Truth Commission.
Yep.
That's old.
I said,
That's before
me.
You gotta be careful using that term. Throwing old around the table here.
But so how do you feel about them? Like your Impact, those guys, places like that?
I feel like it's very smart.
Yeah.
I have no problem with. I don't want to get in trouble. I have no problem with all those belts being on one guy.
Right.
For a story.
Yeah.
It makes sense, and seeing Christian peel two of them off, and then he's got and then they surrendered. They retired the
TNA title.
Okay. I would love to see Nick Aldis. would love to see Nick Aldis defend that NWA title and bring Sweet Charlotte into that storytelling fold because
we were just talking about
matters.
Aldis on the way up here
we were
too.
actually talking about that on the drive here.
He probably drove past his house.
Really?
Well, in Richmond.
Yeah.
That's right. He does live in Richmond, doesn't
His
he?
wife's from Richmond.
Yeah, that's right. Duh.
Yeah. Mickey.
I didn't think about it
They're
when we
busy
were
this
coming up
weekend.
here.
They're busy. They're doing
Yeah.
good things. But absolutely, I would love to see those walls broken down because it gives the workers an opportunity to be exposed to different locker rooms and booking talent. Guys that are on the climb, if they felt like they haven't gotten the opportunity over here, they may be seen by somebody who is keen on what they're putting together and what they can do with them in a story that is just not even written yet. And I think that that's important.
So you're kind of like, so pretty much like you're a fan of what AEW, Impact, New Japan, all of them have been doing with the talent exchange type of deal.
I mean, I liked Lance Archer when he was in Japan. Yeah. When I saw him come over to the TNT show, I thought, man, why isn't he getting a title night or a title push? More quickly. I mean, he's absolutely murdering everybody. Yeah. He is a murder hog monster. It made sense. And I go, let's go ahead and let's see what he can do. And I do appreciate what they were able to turn him into now and how they're using him. And, I mean, the United States title defense, IWGP, and what they've done. I love that Moxley's playing ball with everybody.
Yeah, he's just going
he's done a lot everywhere. He had that match with Josh Barnett, the Bloodsport.
Sure.
Which that's kind of going back to the roots, the catch wrestling style, and I love that.
Yeah.
And I love what Barnett's doing with that. And then, that's a smaller thing, but I like the style.
The evolution in a wrestler's talent doesn't mean that they have forgotten or left something, to get cobwebs and too dusty. And when they bring it back, man, it's just special.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had that moment. That's cool.
Yeah. It's almost refreshing.
Exactly.
When you get that.
Oh, yeah.
You see that again. And I think that's why, I like some of that more traditional stuff a lot of times, because when you see it now, it's, we kind of forgot about that. This is great. We
were talking about on the way up here too. One tag team that keeps up with the old school style wrestling so well is FTR.
And I feel like they're underappreciated.
Definitely.
By and large, they've made such an impact worldwide. And when they come in and they start knocking heads off, I buy it.
Yeah.
Because they make it look so believable.
Yeah. They make it look like a fight. They make it look like a struggle. That's
Doc Gallows. I wouldn't want to mess with him. I wouldn't want to mess with. I wouldn't want to mess with Cash. I wouldn't mess with any of those guys that are of that ilk, that mindset of like the tag team, knock your heads off. I do want to see FDR back and rock and rolling together because I know that he had a full on surgery deal. Oh, yeah, I saw the video. Yeah,
that was brutal.
Well, wrestling's not.
That's not real. That didn't happen.
He didn't really take a shot out of his arm. That's just
But while we're talking about that fourth wall and everything being broken, I actually just saw the other day where they interviewed Samoa Joe.
Yeah.
And he said he's not a fan of that.
Which is interesting because that's where he came from. He came from those places, and I was very surprised to see that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you saw that too?
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I don't want to get too deep into it, but I love Samoa Joe, and I do believe that a lot of his traction early on was built in a time where there was that crossover.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear the quote, so I don't want to misunderstand its context.
So I know, like for a while, the wrestling industry years ago they were doing that crossover, and then they stopped. Yeah. I guess when Vince McMahon had really started running.
Yeah, once current Vince McMahon took over, that's when a lot of those things went away from WWE because his dad used to have partnerships with New Japan and all kind of different places. You'd see other companies' belts in WWE back then. Back when that was what the WWF.
WWF.
And you'd see all kind of different people, different titles. They even had a martial arts title in there.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Well, if they can have an FTW title, they can have martial arts.
Right, correct, exactly. And if you can imagine Billy Graham as a martial artist, that's a whole different.
Did he hold that title?
I believe he did.
No kidding.
So I never heard about
Billy
that.
Graham in a karate gi with no hair and sunglasses. It's interesting.
When was that? Because I never even heard of that.
That's 70s, 80s. That's just way back when everybody still thought Andre the Giant was like 9 feet tall. And
Yeah, predates me.
God.
I just love the history. I go back and look at all different.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So with all these current wrestling promotions now getting more of a spotlight, even the indies, that are getting that push on on the internet and social media, what, in your opinion, what do you think is the best promotion, and who is really hitting it right now?
It's tough to say who's the best promotion. I mean,
Like who's really striking it right with the fans?
I just feel like the collaborations are bringing fans together, and after the year that everybody's had of being shut in and limited, they're blowing the roof off the place.
Definitely.
I feel like that's so important. Live audiences. I mean, we were wrestling in front of 50 people, and they were just excited to see people in the ring. They just wanted to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, you went to a concert last night.
Yeah,
I imagine people were losing their minds.
They were.
Oh,
They could have missed notes and flubbed songs.
Nobody would
care. We're just here to have a good time, and I feel like the companies that, if you say who's the best, who's entertaining people, and it's not, to me, it's not about numbers as far as butts in the seats. It's like who's being entertained, and I feel like the AEW product gives us the most opportunities to be entertained. I mean, you've got dark, you got new hour-long programs, 2-hour-long programs every night of the work week. I mean, I'm doing cardio on a treadmill, and I'm watching. I can catch up with anything I need to, catch up on. And I love being entertained. I love being, caught up and not having to go, okay, well, who's this guy? What's going on here? I miss Joey Janela. I don't see enough Joey Janela.
Now, what? He's usually on dark now.
Well, he's an indie legend, star. And when they brought him into the fold and he brought some of that style that he had, I mean, oh man, I'm stepping on toes. When he had his hardcore match with Kenny Omega, I just felt like he was bringing it. And him and Moxley, great combination. I mean,
definitely,
just delicious. I love their tight work. I mean, I love snug. I mean, show me a fight.
Right. Well, it's like that. Did you watch it? It was Ishii and Moose.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I didn't. I didn't get to see that yet.
From the LA show a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's just come. Yeah.
Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that was great.
It was a young looking trim Moose fighting like the big Moose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like before he lost all that weight.
Yeah.
And he was fighting like he was a big dude, like crushing.
And Moose has been great lately.
Mm-hmm.
I've been really impressed because he's totally leaps and bounds of where he was 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep. But he brought some of that back.
Yeah.
To that fight. Ugh.
Just the heavy hands and all
that.
It
was heavy.
Moose, hasn't really been a name I've heard of until lately.
Right. And then the last year.
Like when y'all said he had just blown up.
You're missing out. You got to go back.
Yeah. And if you want to know where you stand, go wrestle Ishii. That's a good way. That's a good way to figure out where you.
That's a measuring stick for sure. Yeah.
Well, talking about all these different promotions and everything else, what's some of your favorite matches that you've seen lately? So everything going on. It's like you're just wrestling every night of the week now.
Yeah, and I am consuming so many hours, and I have a notebook and I got my notes on my phone that I'm like, all right, I want to make that spot work, or I want to try this out, or tweak this so that I can make it work for my character because I'm still putting that together. Patton is a no nonsense, cigar smoking, whiskey sipping, ass whipping veteran that has just had enough, and he's not flying long hair, and he's just a little bit ugly now, but he's just bringing a fight. And I think that's been conveyed in my recent work.
And I think that type of character, especially also with a lot of people, that type of character is almost click with a lot of people.
Sure. Well, I hope so. I mean, we're really just getting it ramped back up. I was sorry that I missed last night's booking because the building was, I guess, damaged with some flood stuff down in Burlington.
Okay.
Yeah. So they had to move the venue date.
What is the next event that Patton's going to be wrestling at?
So I've really got a sweet spot for the Mid-Atlantic, and I know that there are eyeballs on Tennessee again. Tennessee's a real hot spot, so I definitely want to be out in Nashville, Memphis, Chattanooga making some noise. But North Carolina is near and dear, and I'd love to get down to PWF. I know that the Carinos just had a father-son 25th anniversary match that I can't wait to see. I know that they delivered. Anybody that has rolled with my guy Lance Lude with the Mighty Ducks, they are the ugly ducks. And trust me, there are some ugly ducks. But they really do have that Carolina edge to pro wrestling that, I mean, I don't know if you know of anybody else that's come out of North Carolina that's done well with pro wrestling. AJ. So I can't wait to get down to check out American Lucha and PWF. I'd love to get into the championship wrestling. They've got different markets. They've got the Atlanta. They've got their Tennessee. I'd love to see what you do out there.
I know, like the one that comes on TV a lot. I see championship wrestling from Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I hear them talk about Memphis, but I don't ever see it come on TV.
I'm sure it's locally syndicated out there, which is great.
We're in the wrong spot.
I wonder how Hollywood would be syndicated out here. That's one that kind of
gets me more dollars out.
Yeah,
maybe
that could be.
But they're entertaining to watch too, though.
Yeah, they've had a lot of big names come through.
Definitely, yeah.
James Storm.
He was on there like last year, I think.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, they had him in kind of right around the time of pandemic starting. He was a big name they brought in. So,
well, I would love to be able to find him in the NWA world. I still love Billy Corgan and what he's done creatively. I know that they had to trim things down operation-wise this last year, but they're putting things together with the all-women's pay-per-view.
Yeah, definitely.
Power.
Excited about some stories, and I'm sure some legends are kind of being made out there with that. But, yeah, NWA would definitely be a company I'd like to work for and put that on the resume.
Yeah,
one guy who really grew in NWA was Trevor Murdoch.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he's done some of his best work.
His name just exploded when he went to NWA.
Sure. And then him and Aldous, that's going to be great. So those.
Well, you want to see hard hitting.
Yeah. Trevor Murdoch, that's old school.
They're going to bring out the best in each other. I'm sure.
Definitely.
So what is a dream match that you want to have one day? If there's one person in particular that you would like to pick to have a match with, that you think you could have a great match with.
So before I go to hopes and dreams, I know that in the immediate, I've been trying to get the attention of Man Scout Jake Manning, who's pretty busy. I can appreciate that he's started his own podcast. He's on YouTube. He's got his Man Scout Monday thing. That's fine. He's working for some pretty big promotions. He's made his way onto my TV. So respect. But he handed me a loss 10 years ago that I am not willing to just take to bed. I just can't.
Right.
So if he's watching, I'd love you to answer me back because we had good chemistry, and I know that's weird coming from a real soldier talking to a man scout. But I would love to go again. Another name that I worked with in the past that I'd love to be able to revisit because he has matured so much as an immature guy. He's matured a lot, and that's Caleb Conley with a K. Okay. He keeps good company with a certain alien from the Andromeda galaxy.
Gotcha.
And it's cool to see the people that have stuck in the business or stayed the course in the business and have stayed relevant and whole. Like, he's not broken. I'm not saying I want to pick a fight with somebody that has got one leg. I'm not picking somebody that isn't doing well. And these guys are still reaching. And I want to fight somebody that's hungry. But I also want to fight. And so that's what I'm calling out. That's what I'm about. I want to fight talent that want to work snug. I want them to want to give an audience, a live audience, that moment where they go, I thought wrestling was kind of one way, but after seeing those guys go at it,
this is different.
Yeah. I mean, they were killing each other, and without killing each other, respecting each other's bodies and understanding that it's a mutual thing. It's a give and take. There's a guy out in Texas making some noise, Bryson Scott, and I've worked with him in the past, and again, talking about people that have matured in the business, I'd love to get my hands on him for sure. In all the time that I've worked alongside, I've never fought Phil Brown. And Phil Brown, I mean, he's held every title in the Mid Atlantic there is to get his hands on. And talk about work ethic. You know, I'd love to get a piece of Phil Brown, and even if there were just pieces of Patton left in the ring afterwards, it'd be worth it.
You said Phil Brown got them hellacious chops though too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure.
He got them Walter style chops.
But it's not something that you know, I wouldn't have to hold back with him, and I wouldn't want him to.
Right.
Yeah.
And we both
You can go all the way and not have to worry about it.
exactly.
So for a lot of people, because I know a lot of people that are just beginning their training and coming up through training now, what advice would you give people who are just getting their beginnings?
Pay attention to the story you want to tell. Learn how to tell a story. Maintain your fitness. Your body is what you're giving to your opponent, and if you don't have something to give, you're not really being very generous. And so, if you give somebody something to work with, then you have a higher probability of having good and even great matches. You don't want to overlook your look because it matters. Social media tells us that, you know, the outward appearance, but it's got to go all the way through. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Stay in character in social settings. I don't mean be a heel and get yourself arrested, but I do mean practice.
Right.
You know, practice, and if that means cutting promos on yourself in the mirror while you're getting ready every day, do it. I mean, find out the story that you can tell best and practice that. That's the advice that I would give, because I feel like having moves and being able to do high spots, it has its value. But if you're not telling a story that's worth listening to, you're not going to go far.
You're not accomplishing much without that story.
You're just doing spots.
Yeah. I mean, there are enough places to find entertaining gymnastics and aerobatics and that kind of thing. Extreme sports are a thing for a lot of reasons, and if you want to do that, do that. But if you want to be in the pro wrestling business, you got to take it seriously and be able to tell a story that's going to engage audiences. Give them something to talk about when they get home. You know, I thought, man, Patton was I thought he was really going to get that guy. Man, he went flying over the top rope, just a simple splash, and he got his face kicked off. Man, that really surprised me. I thought he was going to win that or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Tap into creativity.
So one more question, I guess, before we kind of wrap this up. In the next 10 years, where do you want to see Doc Patton go to?
So in the wrestling business, in 10 years, I want to be able to still show that I can go, because there's a certain, I guess, birthday hash mark in the timeline of life that's significant. 10 years, I'll be knocking on 50.
Right.
So I'm not 40 yet. But yeah, I'd love to be able to show my sons, who got to see me perform live for the first time last week,
Oh, really?
that Pop's still able to go. And I still want to challenge myself and set new goals for myself physically, and when it comes to telling stories, I love being able to strike a balance between the work that I do Monday to Friday and the wrestling business, and tucking it all in. I'm a go-getter when it comes to living life, and there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. A lot of people need a lot of help that I hope I'm able to be a part of, and then a lot of people need escapism, because there's so much stuff going on in the world globally that can take our attention and put us in such a negative place, that I love being able to bring something positive into people's lives, a great experience. There's just a lot of value that I want to bring over the next 10 years across a number of platforms. It's not limited to just the Squared Circle, but in the books that I'm writing, the characters that I'm developing. Yeah, I would say I'm still inspired. So 10 years is a long way off for me.
Definitely.
I think 10 years is a long way off, but I'll pack a lot in there, I'm sure.
Doc, thank you for coming on the show with us and
I appreciate you
allowing
making
us.
a road trip.
And we appreciate you inviting us into the office
Yes, sir.
for this opportunity. Again, Doc has written stories and books, best-selling books. You can find them on Amazon. It's 1,300 hours.
Got it.
And what was the?
You said you had a series of short
He
stories.
had a series of short stories too.
Heroes and Ghosts.
Heroes and Ghosts, and that isn't available
Not just yet.
Not just yet. So we're going to be looking for that here in the near future.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, anything else you'd like to plug, mention while we're on here?
Let's see. I've got sponsors that are always great to me. Rockwell watches. They keep me knowing what time it is. Patriot Beard Supply keeps this mustache groomed and smelling so good. And they've been supportive of me for, 7 years now. I've been working with Mac at Patriot Beard Supply, just a little less than that. But, Rockwell put together a dang good watch, and they are always supporting. You can always find a sale. They're always supporting our frontline guys.
Yeah.
Amazing family out of the West Coast in Utah. So check them out, Rockwell Time.
Rockwell watches. All right. You said Patriot Beard Supply?
Patriot Beard Supply. Can't go wrong.
I got to find something to clean this up a little bit.
Yeah, all right. No, but I appreciate you having me on the show. It's always a great time cross-pollinating the fan stuff. Share this. When you see this, don't just listen to it, but give us a 5-star rating on all the platforms. I love that you're on so many platforms.
Definitely.
You guys are definitely making the effort. And so share it. Retweet us. Be part of the conversation.
Yeah, don't forget, when you follow, when you see us on social media and on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, that like, that follow, retweet. Do it all.
Share it everywhere.
If you love us. Even if you like us. You should do that anyway.
Yeah. Just don't leave any bad reviews.
Big Bang Wrestling in the house. Appreciate you guys.
All right, everybody, for those being first time watching, I'm Marcus. And again, this is Dr. Patton, and we are out.
I'm Patton, and I'm sitting here with Marcus and Nick of Big Bang Wrestling. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We know you're going to like it.